Our martial law is the American type, not the European type. The European type of martial law is where the military takes over the entire government. It's a state of siege of war.
They attempted to kidnap my children. They attempted to kill the president 8 times. There was, of course, an attempted assassination against the First Lady. You all know about that.
The superior forces of the enemy, we counted the guns that they were holding, and we realized that they had more guns than the armed forces of the Philippines. So we had to pick them one by one, Napoleon style.
You know, when I proclaimed martial law, I didn't proclaim martial law alone. It is made to appear as if I just signed the decree and said, I impose martial law on each and every one of you. No. I asked the legislature to please pass a law proclaiming martial law because there was anarchy in the country. Now, let me say this. The opposition was strong. And they were members of the Security Council, and somehow they adopted a resolution which required that there be a unanimous vote for the armed forces to be able to move. And therefore the armed forces was immobilized. At the same time, I asked the opposition party to come and join me in a coalition government. I offered one half of the cabinet. And of course they laughed at me and said, why should we join you? We're going to take over the government. By the time you are through with the exercise, you're dead, politically and otherwise. So, and they refused to join me. I asked the advice of the judiciary. I asked the Supreme Court justices, the Court of Appeals justices, and the members of the private sector. And all of them told me there's only one man who can proclaim martial law, and that is the president. And you are it. You are the only one who can proclaim martial law. This is why I must carry this particular mark in our history. I could not have transferred it to the legislature. Why? Because the legislature did not have the power. What does the Constitution provide? The President shall be the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Philippines, and he may order the armed forces out to quell any disorder, riot, rebellion, invasion, insurrection, and in case of invasion, insurrection, rebellion, or imminent danger thereof, when the public safety requires it, he may suspend the privilege of the writ of habeas corpus or proclaim martial law throughout the Philippines or any part thereof. What does that provision provide? It provides that only the President can proclaim martial law. I repeat, that is why I had to assume responsibility. And I am not one for shirking duty. The people said there was necessity for proclaiming martial law. And the people said, you are the only official who can proclaim martial law. So I proclaimed martial law. And I sincerely believed that it was necessary to proclaim martial law to install order and stability because there was complete anarchy throughout the country at the time. Now, therefore, at that particular period, what was the status of our government? Our government was immobilized, impotent. The armed forces could not move out. The industry was not at all in any way moving. There was no income coming into government. Everybody was running away. They burned the U.S. Partly burned the U.S. Embassy, tried to burn it anyway. They tried to kidnap the American ambassador. American ambassador was Byroad, Ambassador Byroad. And they tried to kidnap our foreign minister, Romulo, whom you just saw today. And I told him, you better disappear because I will not ransom you. But whatever it is, they burned the Manila International Airport, they bombed the Supreme Court, they bombed the Constitutional Convention, they bombed the City Hall, they burned part of Malacanang Palace, they attempted to kidnap my children, they attempted to kill the President 8 times. There was, of course, an attempted assassination against the First Lady. You all know about that. And this required that I immediately act on it, and so I did.
Mr. President, let me play the devil's advocate again. One of the critics, one of the key criticisms has been the more things change, the more they remain the same. That while you have lifted the semantic term martial law, you still maintain the power. You can still step in and do what you want. How do you answer that question?
Of course not. On the contrary, the truth of the matter is that I now have transferred the power to legislate to the Batasang Pambansa. They say, yes, but in case of an emergency, the President can exercise certain powers. Under the old Constitution, that was just as true as it is now. Under Article 8, Section 15 of the Constitution, I'm going to start getting pedantic like a professor, the National Assembly can authorize me. Presumably, therefore, since I control the National Assembly, meaning our party is in control, I can get any kind of emergency powers from the National Assembly. So whether it is one way or the other, it is a matter of style and intention. I don't intend to exercise any emergency powers without first giving the Batasang Pambansa or the National Assembly the opportunity and the right to rectify any errors, to meet any emergency, unless, again I say, you are certainly met with revolution. If there is, I repeat, any sudden upsurge of criminality that the Batasang cannot handle. But I won't exercise the power. I will. I have notified everybody. I will. Don't kid yourselves. I'm not going to allow all these advances and these changes, this progress, to go down the drain. It would be a delusion to our people, and they would be so disappointed that they would be willing to take any leadership which can guarantee stability. We would like to have a parliament where there is full, free debate. Look, I grew up in an atmosphere of free debate. I love debate. I'd like to meet anybody who disagrees with me. I've said so repeatedly in the past, and I say so again. We want a parliament and a National Assembly where all sectors of the community will have a chance to be heard through their representatives, and where, as your Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes has said, the truth may come out of the free trade of ideas. I believe that I am not alone. I believe that my generation is used to this kind of give and take, this unfortunate conclusion of some of the Western observers to the effect that we set up this dictatorship because we are afraid of free speech and free debate just isn't correct.
You know, I'm very happy to hear you say this morning that you disagreed with one of the columnists in the newspapers. I think that's a very healthy sign too.
Oh, they have been coming into all kinds of conclusions, and of course, my idea of a free press is everybody should express his views and let the truth come out. This isn't going to stop me from speaking out loud and clear when I hear somebody saying an obvious lie, like the Unido paper saying that on his speech proclaiming martial law, he promised that he would terminate martial law at the end of his term in 73. I did no such thing. I never said anything like that. I was very, very cautious because I did not know whether I would end up fighting in the hills or just giving up to the superior forces of the enemy. We counted the guns that they were holding, And we realized that they had more guns than the armed forces of the Philippines. So we had to pick them one by one. Napoleon style, shades of Austerlitz and all that rock.
That was the last question, but this brings up one more short one. The military. For a martial law administration, having seen a few others, the military was not quite in as much evidence here as it has been in other countries that I've been. But do you think that there'll be any unhappiness on the part of the military with martial law being lifted? Any temptation, since they have had a reasonable amount of power?
No, I don't believe so, because the military has voluntarily subordinated itself to the civil government, even under martial law. You see, our martial law is the American type, not the European type. The European type of martial law is where the military takes over the entire government. It's a state of siege of war. Whereas the American type, as explained by all your experts, Bordick and Willoughby and the rest of them, is where the civil government calls on the military and says, look, these are our decisions. Will you enforce them? And the military comes in and enforces the decision of the civil government. And therefore, the military is subject to the orders of a civilian authority. And this is fundamental in all constitutions that have followed the Constitution, which, of course, ours is. And so the military has been a balancing wheel, as it were. Never in the history of the military has it ever imagined or thought that it could take over the government, even forcibly, at any given time. And therefore, it has acquired a culture of its own, shall we say, a tradition that it recognizes the civil authority and it enforces the decisions of the civil authority. So they will not be unhappy, continuing as it is, subordinate to the civil authority.
Mr. President, thank you very much.
It has been a pleasure, I assure you.